so excited that I get to do my own version of this. I love these.
Awesome. So I reckon if anyone has skipped through the first hour and a half or so of the video, they understand the tier list, but just in case anyone's listening, they don't. We've got the S, which is your God tier, which is quite fitting. A is a very strong outing. B is sort of average, and C is below average. And
Yeah,
only
I always think of the S tier as the pickled onion monster munch tier.
that's a cute way of thinking about it. I think only dinosaurs have ended up in C, but they end up in C quite a lot. Um,
I can't believe rocks didn't end up in C. Everyone seems to. Oh, yeah, I like rocks. Love rocks.
eras of religious character, and so I think you can choose how you'd interpret it in terms of the importance it has in terms of curriculum design or just of interest to yourself. It's totally subjective.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is think about how I would teach these to year six or year seven. So that's kind of like, yeah. I think by the time you get to year six and year seven, you don't have to worry so much about simplifying things that they become boring to you, and you can have some fun with stuff.
Nice. So the first one, it's one picture, but it encompasses quite a long time. So I reckon this is from 1517 and the 95 Theses to the Council of Trent in, was it 1547?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so that period where the of Reformation and the movement from England being a Catholic state to
Hmm.
this new Church of England.
I think this is, personally speaking, this is where a real interest in alternate history exists for me. So the idea that Henry VIII never split from Rome, I could think about that for I just love the idea of thinking about what if Britain was still a Catholic country. So that's a real interest. But we don't really get to do that enough in history. We don't get to explore alternate histories in school, which I think is a shame because I think it's an interesting little fun way to play with knowledge. Personally, not massively interested in the Tudors. I really, my interest in history starts, well, I've got a real interest in like Anglo-Saxons, but 17th century, absolutely my bag. Love the 17th century. 16th century, I'll totally take it or leave it. So I'm gonna go B for the Tudors and all that jazz. I also think that talking endlessly about whether Henry VIII was a good guy or not is getting incredibly boring now, and not a particularly good way of doing history.
Excellent. Would it have been any different if it had just been Martin Luther?
Yeah, if we would, so I've just done teaching the Reformation to year six, and I, I, I don't know. I kind of like the cartoonish version of Martin Luther as this like grumpy ascetic monk who just couldn't bear what was going on. But I also like more contemporary accounts of Martin Luther as someone who just like got caught up in events and wasn't like this prophetic figure that some people make him out to be. I think you can tell some of my like latent Catholicism coming through in how I think about Luther. But yeah, if it was just the Reformation, yes, but including all that stuff about wives and I'm trying to read Wolf Hall. Oh my lord! I mean, I love a big, thick, hefty historical novel, but it just isn't my period.
Nice. Cool. So then the next one is the golden age of Islam.
Okay, love the golden age of Islam. Love it. Islam and religion and science is totally underdone at Key Stage 2. And if you're going to teach religion and science, you just golden age of Islam all day long. The philosophy of it, the social political history of it. I really, so at the moment we do a whole year six half term on Jerusalem, and we look at it through Christian, Jewish, and Muslim lenses. And I would love to do the same thing for Baghdad, but there's not space on the curriculum for it. But yeah, love the Islamic Golden Age, absolutely. I wish I got to teach more of it. I wrote some booklets for another school for year nine, and I did like 2 or 3 lessons on it. And I just love doing all the reading around it. So yeah, Islamic Golden Age is great. Also, like completely, if you're talking about decolonizing the curriculum, then I think the Islamic Golden Age has to have a place in there because it's a perfect example of non-Western philosophies, non-Western development. I think there's some dodgy narrative around how it ended, and I'm kind of almost like the same in the Dark Ages of like, and we had the Light Ages and now we've got the Dark Ages, and after the Islamic Golden Age, everything went dark and religion took over, and you know, but up until that point, it's very good. So I'm going to go, or I have to decide, don't I? S tier for Islamic Golden Age.
Excellent. Um, I've just started a book called The Silk Roads.
Oh
And
yes, yeah,
he starts off by saying, there's an issue with the Western narrative, that's building towards this the rise of Europe. It'd be interesting to see if he addresses that bit in particular. I'm not
yeah.
sure.
I think there's some. The Silk Roads is one of those books that in the last couple of years has really lit history Twitter alight, and there's so much, especially Key Stage 3 history work associated with it. There's like honestly one of the most beautiful books I own is the illustrated children's version. I don't know if you've seen that, but I basically just want to photocopy every single page and do a lesson on it. It's stunning and it's so good. So love the Silk Roads. Yeah, it's a great book.
I think Matt Swain has that book. He showed me that book. It looks fantastic.
It's really nice.
Yeah, because Neil told me to read The Map of Knowledge about the seven cities, um,
Okay, yeah.
end of last year, and since then, every second book has been about that sort of period and alternative interpretations of because
That, that's my go-to for audiobooks. So I read like fantasy novels on my Kindle, and then my audiobooks are always like hefty. Like what was his name? Tom's did the history of the English or something like that. It's like 1,000 pages, but when you've got a 90-minute commute and then another like half an hour walk to school from Fenchurch Street, you can do that kind of thing.
you can rack up those minutes on Audible. Nice.
Yeah, get your subscriptions worth.
The next one is the Second Vatican Council.
Oh wow, that's a good. Oh, that's a great choice. I did not expect to see that making an appearance here.
So that's probably
Oh
the
my God. I would love to teach about the Second Vatican Council, but if you are going to teach about that in year 6 or year 7, you have to lay so much groundwork. You're going to have to have, well, if you're in a Catholic school, you could probably do it, but you would probably have had to spend a solid year doing Christianity. You have to do Catholic social teaching, Protestantism, Reformation, liturgy, ritual, traditional forms of I mean, the Latin mass. What? Yeah. Wow. Wow. I never thought of teaching that in primary. Um, I personally love it. Find it endlessly interesting. Also, being an Anglo Catholic myself means that I get to take a position on it, and it does not matter because I'm Anglican. I'm not Roman Catholic, so I get to have opinions about it that don't really impact my faith. I'm going to put that in A tier because of the personal draw, but it's not S tier because I couldn't teach it to my current year 6s without laying just putting probably more effort into it than it's worth for a kid in Southwark to know about the Vatican Second Vatican Council.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a ton of background knowledge necessary, and obviously it's probably the fact that I'm from Ireland, and this is obviously something that I definitely covered in secondary school, but perhaps they were sowing the seeds of it at the end of primary and stuff.
Yeah,
Mm, but a lot of that was just tweaking what we already understood about the way life was in the north of Ireland. Whereas if you're coming at it from not living through, those rituals, then
yeah.
you're starting from scratch
I
almost.
can. I did my. I most of my PGCE years in a Catholic school, and we taught the Catholic GCSE, which is like I love the Catholic GCSE. It gets into all the nooks and crannies because it has so much time to devote to just doing pure Catholicism, and that's kind of that thing of like over and under ambition. It's probably slightly over ambitious because and it sacrifices breadth for depth. But I loved it, loved teaching it, and I would quite happily go back and teach secondary Catholic GCSE. I think, to be honest, yeah, that's a real. That came about after the reforms to the GCSEs, and they went full. I mean, you do stuff in that GCSE that I remember doing the pontifical nature of the church, eschatology, theology of the body, all of this stuff, and I think even the A level, secular A level, doesn't cover that. So
Nice. And then our fourth one is Buddha. I suppose, and that can represent that particular time in the 6th century, I think, or it
yeah,
could be Eastern philosophy and religion.
yeah,
Whichever.
let's stick with the life. So Buddha, 6th century BC. I mean, Buddha is when we talk about the life of Buddha, you have to really dig home. Like, if you think the life of Jesus Christ in the Gospels is, the Gospels are not maybe the most accurate historical record, then the life of Siddhartha Gautama 4,000 years beforehand, who knows? And I like that. I like being able to teach it as a kind of like being able to grapple with that myth, not myth, history, not history, because that's fundamental to religious to understanding religion. So in that way, it's a great way to teach myth, and it's a great way to teach mythos and logos and things like that. I find the story absolutely fascinating of this privileged, prissy young man who's surrounded by uh, lovely looking ladies and lives in four different palaces or three different one for each season, and then his friend takes him out on a chariot into the town, and suddenly he realizes that people die, people get old, there are poor people in the world. I mean, it's a really entertaining story to tell, and Ari is basically the best Ari. I think sometimes is just storytelling, and so the story, the life of Siddhartha Gautama, I've taught it lots throughout my years, my 4 years as a teacher, and I've loved it every time I've done it. I used to teach GCSE Buddhism, and I loved it. So absolute S tier. Just love the story of Siddhartha Gautama. And I said earlier in the podcast I didn't really think that Ari was all about self-examination and learning to be a better person, but I do think there's merit in introducing children to the idea of asceticism, the idea of self-denial, because I wish someone had taught me about self-denial when I was at school, that I might understand that was a moral thing. Because no, it took me a while to realize that.
Excellent. So we've got in the S tier, we've got the Golden Age of Islam and Buddha. A, we've got the Second Vatican Council, and then we've got in B, the period of the Reformation.
And I'm gonna make a last minute addition and just put the English Civil War in the S tier, because obviously that's all very like religious, and I think it's so fun. Teaching the 17th century is just what a dream, what an absolute dream. Love it so much.
Nice, excellent. I'll see what I can do post edit to see if I can get the picture of the English Civil War just to appear.
Nice.
Awesome. So I think thank you very much for joining us today. It's been absolutely fascinating from start to finish, and I know that people are going to feel really really energized in terms of their RE teaching. I know I wish I could teach it tomorrow, and just based on this.
I literally am teaching it tomorrow, so recorded as it will be, but yeah.
Awesome. But yeah, thank you very much.
No, thank you. And can I just say, like, please just DM me on Twitter, like, or just message me on Twitter. Whoever is listening to this that wants to talk about primary RE, and I'll happily. I've done over half term. I've done maybe 5 or 6 Zoom chats with people, and just maybe like half an hour just to talk about their curriculum and stuff like that. I love it. It's as good for me as it is for them, and it's something I'm trying to develop professionally as well. It's like helping other schools and things. So yeah, that's kind of a plea from me, I guess. If you're wanting to talk about it, then I want to talk about it as well. So.